I hate to quote the idol, but Troye Sivan was onto something when he said, when was the last nasty, nasty bad pop girl? Hey guys, what's up? It's Imurgency and welcome back to my channel. Today we are back, and as you can tell by the title of this video, we are going to be ranking pop stars. And I feel like pop stars are a staple in the entertainment industry and a staple to just general pop culture as a whole. And I feel like we as the viewer get a front row seat to these pop stars' lives in different forms of creative expression as they go throughout their career. We see them debut, we see them grow, we see them flop, we see them reinvent themselves and reach new heights that they couldn't have even imagined. And that's honestly all part of the journey and part of why we love seeing these pop stars so much and idolize them, for better or for worse. And while we may live for the certain eras that our pop stars choose to embark upon, one era in particular that applies to so many pop stars is one that I will always live for. And that era is the good girl gone bad era. Like, that era is always going to eat for me. I feel like the good girl gone bad or like a reputation era is always either categorized by a massive comeback or completely breaking away from a pop star's previous image in a very drastic way. And each and every time it will never not gag me because there's just so much energy and drama and attention towards it. Like, people have a million and one opinions about these eras, and sometimes artists do very troubling things in their creative expression. So I felt like it was only right, you know where this is going, to rank some of my favorite and most iconic, in my opinion, good girl gone bad pop star eras. So if you are new around here, then definitely subscribe now. Leave a like on this video and follow me on my other socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Also consider hitting the join button to become a channel member today to get access to 2 exclusive show review videos a month, as well as early access to all of these videos. But yeah, let's get into this tier list, shall we? So before we get into anything, I do want to preface that, as you could tell probably by the list of pop stars we have in this list, this is going to be a very unserious ranking video. This is not like my other ones, no. Usually I take my other ranking videos with a little bit more seriousness, intention. Here, we are really just going based off of vibes. And as you can see with our list here, we have a very loose and wide range of what we consider to be a pop star. I just kind of wanted to have a little fun with this video. So yeah, these are my opinions. I know that the girls like to tussle when it comes to stand-ups and stand wars. So just know that this is very, very unserious. This holds 0 weight, at least for me. So, let's break down this tier list. Starting from the bottom, we have the Diva Down tier. In this tier of Good Girl Gone Bad eras, either weren't super impactful, were shrouded in a little bit too much controversy, where the whole era shift kind of lost its luster, and or ones that I'm not super familiar with. And there are a few on here that I'm not super familiar with, meaning I've heard songs from this era, I've seen some general stuff around what was going on during this era, but I wasn't necessarily in tune, like I wasn't a stan or a fan at the time of this era happening. So yeah, again, that's why this is an unserious review, among other things. Then the tier above that is the decent era tier. This is a tier where I just really don't have many things to say. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, I wasn't super tuned in, I wasn't super tuned out. It was a decent tier, which is bested by the appropriate tier. Now hold on, don't. Stay with me. This tier of Good Girl Gone Bad eras are usually categorized, how can I say this? You know, typically when pop stars of a certain complexion do their bad girl era, sometimes they tend to adopt a certain culture, a certain way of speaking, singing, and rapping. That is not how they would say talk, sing, or rap to, say, their parents or their grandmother. Now, normally this is awful. Normally this is something that we do not condone, and I am not a supporter of cultural appropriation. In fact, I think I talked about this in videos in the past. However, there are very select and few times where, despite the controversy, despite what's going on as a Black person, sometimes certain pop stars appropriate that era. And we'll get into that. The tier above appropriate is even more unserious. The page 6 approved tier. Now, as we know, page 6 is very messy. Page 6 gets down, don't play, and sometimes puts out stories that aren't necessarily true. So Good Girl Gone Bad eras in this tier really did make their moment. It's something that Page Six would approve. They would write about. It would be all over. Because Page Six, it's for the tea. I'm sorry. That's where you get all the tea. So they would love a good girl gone bad era. So yeah. And that tier is only bested by what I feel is the most, you know that joke on Twitter where people were like, gay people could never just say you look good. Well, this tier is called Level 10 Motherquake. And pop stars that enter this tier, their good girl gone bad era will be known in history books, or at least in the roomy Imurgency history books. They're just iconic. I can't forget them. They're etched into my memory and likely change this pop star's career forever. So yeah, those are our tiers. Let's get into ranking, shall we? So first pop star that we have is none other than Ariana Grande. And while this picture is old, I didn't actually do a great job of sourcing pictures from the eras I'm talking about. This specific good girl gone bad era has to do with Ariana Grande's transition post Disney. So from her My Everything era to the Dangerous Woman era, because I feel like before Dangerous Woman, she was kind of like that bubblegum pop. She was like super like like dainty, but in Dangerous Woman, she came on the track and said, oh, I get down. I don't play. She got features from Future and Lil Wayne saying egregious things on the track, as well as speaking about more intimate and mature topics. And the promo, the rollout, and the music videos of this era were also more, como se dice, bad girl-esque. It wasn't following the traditional image of what Ariana Grande had for that moment. And I feel like because she had this transition, because she distanced herself from the Cat Valentine of it all, the Disney-fication of it all, she really shifted her career for the better. And as an Ariana Grande stan, I have nothing more to say than it's a level 10 motherquake, I'm sorry. Next, following suit in the unseriousness, we have Ashley O. No, you may have thought this is Miley Cyrus. We actually have Miley Cyrus a little bit later in this list. This is Ashley O. And if you're not familiar with who Ashley O is, Ashley O was the biggest pop star known to man in a certain TV series that we know and love called Black Mirror. And I feel like Ashley O really did set things off for the culture. Like Ashley O was the people's pop star, except that she was essentially cloned into a robot and was held against her will. But she had bops, you know, like the songs were hitting, the songs were great, the songs were to be desired. However, the whole captivity thing of it all just was not necessarily the best look from like a PR perspective. Yeah, that's where the bad comes in. Like you may be asking yourself, Rumi, how is this a good girl gone bad if she, for one, is not real, and two, was only sentient and a thing for a single episode of a show? Well, you see, like, you know, you get it, like, come on, you get it. Yeah, I'm fully considering the bad part, her just being held captive. So I will put Ashley O, unfortunately, although she was very impactful, she's going into the diva down category because for much of her era, she was down and you really hate to see it. Next up is Rihanna's album, actually called Good Girl Gone Bad. And I feel like this era was revolutionary for Rihanna. This was truly when she stepped into her bad bleepness of it all. Like this is what essentially started the formation of the Rihanna that we know today. Maybe not specifically like the business Rihanna, but in terms of like the energy, the fashion, the looks, the it girl of it all really did start from this era. And this album that she put out has a lot of hits. Like it has Umbrella, Breaking Dishes. This album was all over the radio back in the day. And for that, for the fashion, for just the era as a whole, it has to go into level 10 motherquake. Like I argue with yourself because Rihanna 8. I'm sorry. Next up, Demi Lovato's Confident. Now I will say at the time that this album was released and the time that this era came out, I was not tuned into Demi's scene. But what I do know is that this album was very different for Demi. I feel like the energy of Confident was meant to be like this very sexy turnaround sort of era where she's just really embodying the pop girl aesthetic. And Demi's been vocal about this era retrospectively, saying that it wasn't their favorite era and that it was kind of inauthentic to Demi. The music from the era was great because we got Cool for the Summer. But I will have to say, since I was not super duper tuned in, I'll put it in decent era. Don't fight me. Don't fight me. I'm sorry. I love Demi though. When we talk about the good girl gone bad pop star, I feel like the blueprint right? One of the first people you think of is Britney Spears, because Britney Spears' hypervisibility during that era where she was going through the good girl gone badness of it all was insane for the time. I wasn't really there for that, but hearing about it after the fact, like that was a crazy era. And from all of the music and from all of the videos, performances that I've seen from that time, I feel like because she was so hyper visible and because the image shift was so drastic to the public at that time, it's a hit for me. So I'm kind of in between putting it in between page 6 approved, just because it was fueled so much by like the media and the press and level 10 Motherquake, just because Britney is so iconic in that way. I think I'll put it in level 10 Motherquake. I feel like she deserves that. Yes. Next up, Doja Cat. Now this is where we sort of get loose with the good girl gone bad era trope of it all, because Doja never presented herself to be this like cookie cutter, super innocent girl. Like she hopped into the mainstream talking about cyber intercourse and saying things to the tune of, you ain't never seen it in a dress like this. But what I mean when I'm talking about this is more so good girl in the eyes of the public, like someone that is publicly revered as being good, iconic, and just generally well loved, to the recent era that she's had with Scarlett, where she's essentially adopted this bad girl persona. I don't really believe that it is a bad girl persona, but then going to appeal to a more niche audience, or at least to a different audience than what she initially popularized with. And I feel like we all have been aware of Doja Cat's rollout with Scarlett last year. In my opinion, it was a really great album. I have been streaming it since it's come out. And I feel like while the era was coming out, things were being posted left and right and were talked about left and right in the press. There was so much drama. Some definitely warranted, while some was a little fear-mongery. But I feel like in terms of the era as a whole in my books, I'd put it in page 6 approved, just for the fact that it was so controversial and such a big shift. Moving on to Chloe Bailey, who I feel like also is in a similar vein to Doja Cat. Not in terms of what the eras look like, but in terms of not necessarily being super wholesome initially, but presenting an era that was more than what her initial fan base was expecting at the time. So I'm talking about the transition from Chloe going from Chloe and Halle to Chloe's single music. And I'm going to say this first and foremost because I will take any chance I get to defend this woman. The internet did Chloe Bailey so wrong. Like from the second she went solo, like people were just so mean to that lady for no reason. I feel like she'd just be vibing and doing her own thing. Whether you vibe with the music or not, doesn't justify like the amount of hate that she was getting online. People calling her all types of names, saying all these different things about her. Like it was completely unjustified in my opinion. Were some of the videos that she posted not in the best taste? I mean, yeah, but it didn't warrant the months and months of dragging, shaming, and just general character bashing that she received. But talking about this era specifically, what made this era different was that it did go in a more sexual route. Like with her debut single, Have Mercy, having the song revolve around essentially her derriere. Being a twerk anthem and with the visuals being what they were, it was just very jarring from her Chloe and Halle audience that was used to her and her sister being more wholesome and like dabbling in talking about those things, but not doing it as explicitly as Chloe did with her debut. I thoroughly think that Chloe's Good Girl Gone Bad era, while hate aside, is definitely page 6 approved. Like that girl was in the press, but also it was a solid era for me. Like I was here for it. Next up, dipping back into the unserious, Jocelyn from The Idol. I feel like we are launched into the series of The Idol with the immediate Good Girl Gone Bad. With everything that had gone on, I feel like we watched her, and I say we very loosely, seeing her transform from this cookie cutter pop star to this raunchy pop star influenced by Tedros to whatever version of a pop star she ends up wanting to be after she plays everybody. I still can't get over how weird that storyline was and how it wasn't really the serve that anyone thought it was going to be. Actually, I don't know if anyone had necessarily high hopes, but I don't know if it's the serve that the writers thought it was going to be. The outfits from the era were amazing, I can't lie. But this one also goes in the deep down category because what was that? Sorry, Jocelyn. Next, actually Miley Cyrus. But Miley Cyrus in the bangerz era. I feel like the bangerz era was the epitome, was the modern. Like, if I couldn't speak to Britney, I can speak to Miley's bangerz era because I was there for that. 13-year-old me, 12, 13-year-old me was jamming to bangerz. Like, there was so much hate for this era because Miley went from Hannah Montana to twerking in a teddy bear costume at the VMAs. Like, there was just so much going on. Like, I remember exactly where I was for this era. I remember watching the kids react, the teens react to the We Can't Stop music video. Like, you just had to be there. When Wrecking Ball came out and had the whole world gagged because she was sitting there swinging naked on a wrecking ball, licking a hammer, like, you really just had to be there. Like, all of the YouTube parodies that came out during that era because of those two songs, I'm sure that this era alone funded Bart Baker's retirement plan. The way that he and his problematic ass were on those parodies, like, it is crazy. That era was insane. And I feel like it's also important to acknowledge the levels of appropriation that were going on during this era, because she definitely did dabble in trying to be a little hood. She said she gets ghetto. She had a song called Do My Thing, not thing, thang. She said, I'm gonna put this little southern twang. I'm gonna get a little, she said, I'm gonna do my thing. Bang, bitch. You think I'm strange, bitch? Think I'm bananas like a orangutan? Mind your business. Stay in your lane. Oh dear. I'm a Southern belle. I told y'all once before, I get crazier than hell. Getting wild up in here, getting live up in here, turn up in here, going up in here. Hey! Like, I feel like by the way that I'm talking about this, it's clear where this era is going. Like, it appropriates. This is the one and only example in my books, in my humble opinion, except for Ariana and her Thank You Next era. She also goes to this tier, but this era appropriates. Like, the girls don't do it like this no more, and they shouldn't. Let me make that clear, they shouldn't. The doors for that are closed. We are not condoning cultural appropriation in the Black community. That is not what we're doing. But what Miley did with Bangerz, retrospectively looking back, that was some good music. That was an era. And I feel like if you're going to deny that, you're denying yourself from two things being true at once. Because yes, cultural appropriation, wrong. She should not have adopted a Black alter ego, really dipped her toe into Black culture, and then when she was done with it, just dipped it and never went back. As like an aesthetic, she shouldn't have done that. But also at the same time, that was a hit record. The music videos were iconic. Like, yes. Moving on. The next pop star, again getting loose with the description, but Lil Nas X. I feel like Lil Nas X has many good girl gone bad eras. Well, I can't really say good girl gone bad because he was only a good girl once. And then to the public, he was bad. And then for this recent era, he got worse to the public. Again, I'm saying to the public. But this era specifically is more towards his Old Town Road to Montera era, where he was a supposedly straight Black man in country to then becoming the gay boy that we know that gave a lap dance to Satan. Now looking back, this era 8, it was so good. Like the visuals, the songs, the controversy was good because we had never seen anything quite like it before. It was very new, it was very fresh. It was what we needed. And I feel like there's no better tier to put this than the page 6 approved tier because again, controversial, definitely changed his perception in the public view, reinvented himself as an artist. It is generally iconic. I love that era. Next up, Sabrina Carpenter. And this era is something that I'm defining as her good girl gone bad era. And that is the transition from whatever album came before Emails I Can't Send and Emails I Can't Send, because what happened during that era, if you didn't know, was the Olivia Rodrigo and Joshua Bassett controversy of it all that she was tangentially involved in. So prior to that, Sabrina had a flourishing career on Disney. She left Disney, was making her own music. She was fine, not necessarily super in the mainstream, but wasn't really known for anything super problematic or super controversial. Then Olivia makes driver's license and it's speculated and found to be about Sabrina Carpenter. And from there, the internet goes on this tirade of her. They are dragging her left and right, sending her death threats, doing all of these things towards her because of this song and because of Deja Vu coming out. There was a whole bunch of scandal. And then Sabrina also then goes and releases the song Skin, which adds more fuel to the fire. And she really is getting branded as this bad girl, this homewrecker, just generally not a girl's girl. She has something to prove, right? The internet is against her, the world, it seems like the world is against her. So what does she do? She puts out the record, Emails I Can't Send, where she talks about her experiences, directly addresses all the controversy in the song, Because I Like the Boy. And she gave us a very solid album and era. I don't know if a lot of y'all know this about me, but I am a Sabrina Carpenter stan. Like I discovered her music earlier last year, and I've honestly been hooked. She makes bops. Like I am here for it, and I'm glad that she has embraced the cards that have been dealt with her. I feel like we do owe Sabrina Carpenter a big apology in terms of why do we care so much, for one. Two, it turns out that what happened wasn't what actually was publicized. So yeah, page 6 approved for sure. Next up is Lizzo. And this really doesn't have to do with the music at all. This really just has to do with public perception of going from good to bad. Again, very much stretching the definition here. This has to do with the Lizzo controversy scandal where she was accused of all these things of creating a hostile work environment. Again, don't know how that is going because I don't think there's been like big news on that, or at least publicly on how that's been going. But I feel like that did really hurt Lizzo's reputation for being known as this like super friendly, happy-go-lucky, like always about women's empowerment, body positivity, and just kindness, to having these accusations against her where that image was kind of damaged a bit, where she was getting allegations that were in contrast with all of that. I really don't have much to say with this. I don't know why I really put it in there. I feel like I was kind of... So yeah, it goes in Diva Down because we need more information. Last but not least is the Taylor Swift reputation era. And I feel like this is a very popular Good Girl Gone Bad era for a lot of people. I have a confession, and this might be a hot take for certain people. I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan. I'm not super into her music like that. However, I can appreciate the bops that she has, and I can appreciate the impact that she has had. And because it's Taylor Swift, I feel like she has a big moment no matter what she does. And I feel like Reputation was one of those eras where she was having a big comeback. So I will put Reputation at the bottom of page 6 approved. Yes. And here's our list, y'all. I feel like it's actually a very unserious list. We got 1 inappropriate, 1 indecent era, 3 in Diva Down, the most in page 6 approved, and then the top 3 being the Dangerous Woman era, the Good Girl Gone Bad era, and just Britney Spears. Like, I feel like this is a great list. I had a lot of fun making this video. If you want to play around with this tier list as well, I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. Now I want to hear from you. What are your favorite Good Girl Gone Bad eras? What are your least favorites? And what are some that I didn't mention that you feel like should be on this list? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. Again, if you're new, then make sure to subscribe, leave a like on this video, follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and consider hitting the join button to become a channel member today. But other than that, y'all, I've been Imurgency, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.